for another edition of Shed Talk, my weekly magazine video series looking at the keeping, breeding and showing of cage birds with a particular focus on the exhibition style budgerigar. I hope you can hear me okay, because budgerigars at the moment in here are being very loud. Anyway, in this episode, as promised previously, we are going to look at cleaning the Finch flight out, getting that all prepared, ready for the nest boxes to go up for the breeding of the Zebra Finches in there. As you know, I do that on a colony basis, so it's slightly different to the breeding cages we've got for budgerigars and the Fifes at the moment. Along with that, we will look at splitting how I split my budgerigar pairs up, and we will look at 3 different possible scenarios around that, mainly because that's what I'm about to do. In the most of June is going to be sorting about splitting up the budgerigars. We will also, of course, have a look at both see how the Fifes are getting on. Remember, with the last episode we had eggs in the second round of the Fifes, and we will also have a look at how the ticks are doing in the cage 1 for the budgerigar pairs. So that's what we've got for this episode. Let's go out now into the Finch and Fife shed and have a look at cleaning those that Finch flight and preparing it for breeding the zebras. So we are back out here in the Finch and Fife shed, and I've actually been cleaning the Finch flight out. I didn't manage to do as much work in there as I actually wanted to do, and the main reason for that was that as I was scrubbing and going in there, the hen canary kept lifting off the nest pan. So I think I was disturbing her a little bit too much. So what I eventually ended up doing was just scrubbing down all the wooden sections and the front wire area, but I haven't managed to do any of the major repair work in there that I was hoping to do before putting the nest boxes up. However, like I say, I have scrubbed out most of it. It's not as good as I would like it to be by any means, and what I think I'm going to have to do is perhaps September, when the canaries will have finished and I will hopefully have finished giving the zebras a quick go at breeding. I can get back in there before the weather turns too bad for the winter. That's my plan. So I cleaned it pretty much, or as I did the old Finch flight, which is now the main budgerigar flight in the other shed. I used this, which is the F10 disinfectant, diluted down into a couple of, or a litre of water in a bucket, and then just used a brush to scrub it. I don't have that many hen zebras. Have I looked at them? I think I've probably got 3 or 4 in there. So I've actually only put up 3 nest boxes for now. I've got 2, one on the far wall, which you'll see in a second, and then 2 on the hanging off the near cages. The one on the far wall is higher, and I'll be able to see them going in and out of there if they do. The ones here I won't be able to see them going in and out of, but they've actually got a bit more privacy, I suppose, when I'm working in here. My experience with the zebras out in the other place is wherever I put a nest box up, they'll use it. And so I've never had a problem with them finding or using the nest boxes. The other thing that I've done in here now is I've put some nesting material in there for them. I'll be able to keep an eye on that. If it starts to look low, I will top it back up again. So it's just now a matter of giving them a few days to settle in, get used to the nest boxes, and hopefully the hens will start to go to nest. One of the things I've noticed is that there is at least one hen in there who's currently laying eggs, because every time I come in here there's an egg on the floor somewhere, normally smashed. So I'm hoping now she will be able to just go to nest, and we'll get a few baby zebras before the end of the breeding season. In terms of what I've spoken about, of making sure that I don't have any breeding when I'm away on holiday, it's less of a problem when I'm colony breeding. Colony, that's the word I'm looking for, colony breeding, because again they'll just have to come in and top the seed up in here and not worry about checking nest boxes or anything. I don't check the nest boxes for the zebras when I'm breeding them like this. As I say, they're only pet type zebras and just something else for a bit of interest. So there we are, that's that been cleaned out in here, and we're now just a wait and see, haven't we? Just going to have to wait and see how they go. Well, that's the finch flight all sorted, ready for the zebras to start breeding. Back in here in the budgerigar shed, the main focus is actually on splitting the pairs up. So I normally split the pairs up about now. What I do, and I've said this before, is I work backwards from the time that I'm due to go on holiday. So I like to give myself to now have very little breeding in the breeding cages in particular before when I'm on holiday, so that whoever's looking after the birds doesn't have to worry about you know, a whole load of cages and birds still with eggs and all that sort of stuff. So all they've got to do is just feed the main flights. So that's why I try to split up about now. I work backwards. I like to be able to clear all the breeding cages 2 weeks before I go on holiday. So I work back from that on weaning chicks, etc., until I get to a date roughly about now when I know I need to start splitting the pairs up. And there are 3 possible scenarios, I suppose, and I've called them, for want of a better phrases, easy, medium and hard, just because they are slightly more complex as you go through them. The first of those then, the easy ones, are what we've got behind us here in cage 3, where we've got a pair not on eggs, not in a nest box, and showing no sign of breeding. So splitting these is relatively easy. These are the pair in cage 3. They haven't done anything, so quite simply what I will do is first thing I will do is remove the cockbird. That's common throughout all of the scenarios. So I remove the cockbird, and he will actually go straight back into the main flight. Doesn't need a rest or anything like that, I don't think anyway. He's not been doing anything in there. If anything, you know, he's not been in there too long, but if he'd been in there a bit longer, might want to give him some exercise in one of the stock cages, but he's not been in there that long, so I don't need to worry too much about that. So the cockbird will come out. He will get a quick dose of ivermectin to, you know, the anti-mite treatment. I do that for all the birds when they come out of the breeding cages for no other reason than it's, you know, I've got them in my hands, I can check them over and do it at that stage. So, and then he will go straight back into the flight cage. The next thing that will happen with this pair is that I will turn the nest box around so the hen can't go in it. She hasn't been in it anyway, certainly not in the last, you know, week or so. So I will turn the nest box around, which will prevent her from going in it. I could, in this case, take the nest box straight off, but I won't do that. I only say I could take the nest box straight off because she hasn't been in there anyway, so it's not going to distress her too much, suddenly there being no nest box. I will still give, even though the hen hasn't been breeding, I will still give the hen in here a week in the flight cage on her own. This just gives her a chance to to not have the hustle and bustle, as I always say, of the main flight, but also just to get used to there not being a cockpit around and that sort of thing. Probably what I could do is just take her straight out and pop her into one of the stock cages, give her a little bit more exercise, but in this case I won't. I'll give her a week in there, and then I'll give her a week in one of the stock cages. Nice and easy really, isn't it? You know, just when you've got them not showing any signs, it's nice and easy splitting that sort of pair. So that's the first one that I say is the easy splitting of pairs. So let's now turn our attention to I suppose the mediumly difficult one, and that's where we've got a bird that is on eggs, but they are all clear. And we've got an example of that actually in cage number 8, no, cage number 9. And I've already started the process here. So the first thing that I do is when they're on clear eggs, although, you know, going back to that particular bird, she did have full eggs, but I've moved them. So all she's got in the nest box is clear eggs. So what I would then do, and I've already, as I say, I've already started with that particular one, is I would remove the cockbird. So the cockbird would come out. I would give him in that case where they've been in there a little while, I'd give him a bit of rest in a stock cage, and then move him into the flight cage. I would leave the hen then until the eggs are reaching the time when they would be due to hatch. And if she hasn't then started to destroy the eggs knowing that they're clear herself, what I then do is I remove them one every 2 days. Now in that particular cage there were 5 eggs, sorry, in there, because we moved some clear eggs from cage 1 into there. And so what I've then done is I gradually remove them. Once the final egg has been removed, I will then give her a day or 2 days with the nest box open, and then I will turn the nest box around to stop her from going back in. I'll then give her about a week in the breeding cage. This allows her to readjust her temperature out of breeding condition temperature, and so on and so forth. And what I would then do is move her from the breeding cage into a stock cage, and probably give her a week to 2 weeks in a slightly larger stock cage, just so that she gets some strength back before going into the main flight. So that's what I would do in that case where we've got a bird or a pair that are on clear eggs. You know, relatively easy, but not quite as easy as a bird that is, or in terms of splitting them, that is got no eggs at all, or haven't started breeding at all. So there we go, that's the medium one then, and I'm doing that at the moment. I'm at the moment moving eggs from there, and once that's done, I can start moving or getting that that hen back ready to go into the main flight gate as we've just discussed. So time to turn our attention to the slightly more difficult one, and that's where we've got a pair that is either on full eggs or got chicks, and I would treat them both the same, assuming that the eggs hatch and have viable chicks. So in other words, they've been fed and start to grow nicely. So what I will do here is, obviously I need to wait until all the chicks have been weaned and I've moved to the flight cage before the nappy cage, before I can split this pair completely. However, that doesn't mean that we can't begin the preparation of splitting the pair up. I could move the cockbird at any stage during this process, but for me what I prefer to do is to wait until I'm happy that the chicks are beginning to jump the nest box, or getting ready to jump the nest box. The difficult bit here, or the bit here that I find, is that is weighing up that bit of allowing the cockbird to assist the hen on feeding the chicks against preventing the cockbird and the hen from going back for another round. So it's getting more full eggs basically is what we don't want to do. So for me, I will wait until the chicks are either just about to jump the nest already, or have just started to jump the nest. And at that point, I will remove the cockbird from the breeding cage and let the hen finish rearing all of the youngsters. That way I can, I can begin to get the hen out of breeding condition, and I can almost be certain that the hen won't go down for another round. She may, of course, start laying again, but we would hope that by moving the cockbird relatively early, none of those eggs are going to be full. So once I've taken the cockbird away, I can then let the hen continue to rear the youngsters on her own. She's perfectly capable of doing that, so there shouldn't be a problem with that. And once they've been weaned, I will move them, as always, to the nappy flight. And then what we'll do is we'll do the normal process with the hen. We'll leave her in there for a short while with the nest box closed, probably about a week, and then we'll move her to a stock cage with a bit bigger than the breeding cage, so that she can exercise and get ready for the main flight. Again, about 2 weeks, and that will also allow her once again to drop her temperature from breeding temperature down to normal temperature. She won't have the hustle and bustle of the main flight, and at that point, once we move her back into the flight, all of this, the breeding system in here, will be clear, ready for me to have a holiday and for somebody to look after them without the worry of all of the breeding going on. Of course, it also means now that I will then have a chance to start cleaning everything out and get everything ready for the show season, and of course then prepping for September time for repairing up, ready for September, October time, when we will look to put the birds down for another season of breeding. So that continuously process of running through. So there we go. That's the 3 different, I suppose, scenarios for splitting pairs. I hope that helps anybody who, because it is always a trying time for me anyway. I still get worried even after all the time of breeding. This process of splitting pairs up, it's always quite a, getting the timing right, hoping that you're going to give, that you're going to give them the maximum opportunity to bring up the chicks without them having to go for another round, so you've got the problem of possibly throwing away fertile eggs. So there we go, that's the splitting of pairs. We will have a look at, in a future episode, at how I then prepare for the show season and so forth. And of course this year I've also got to worry about the Fifes outside, but because actually the Fifes tend to, first of all, they're only going to do 2 rounds, and from when I put them down till the second round, I'm almost in the same process here of, or the same timing here in terms of this pair behind me, of when I would normally split up the pairs that are on full eggs. And we'll talk a little bit about that, maybe in a future episode, about me splitting that pair up there, because it'll be the first time I split Fifes up, of course. Anyway, while we're in here, what we will do, before we go out and look at the Fifes, we will talk briefly about how cage 1 is actually getting on, because you'll be aware that we had some eggs that were hatching in there. So how are the birds in cage number 1 doing then? You may remember they'd had 6 full eggs in there, 4 of which were their own, and 2 that we moved from cage number 9. So we were expecting them to hatch. I can tell you now that 4 of the eggs so far have hatched. We're still waiting on 2 to see if they're going to hatch or not. They should be due within the next day, 2 days I think, maximum, but 4 have hatched. And as you can probably see when we're looking in the nest box here, there's only 3 chicks in there. One of the chicks, the second chick to hatch, was very, very weak after it had hatched, and I think it was not really calling loud enough for food from the hen, and I think that it literally just didn't get fed, so the hen just didn't feed that one. in hindsight, wonderful thing, in hindsight, I probably should have topped this bird up, that chick up, overnight when I looked in the nest box and saw that it didn't have a very full crop. So, but there we go, I didn't do that, and we lost that second chick. All the others that have hatched have been fed fine. One of them is almost ready to be rung, so I'll be ringing that in the next couple of days. And like I say, the others have been fed brilliantly. What I don't know is which I think the one that died was one of her own. The first chick that hatched was definitely her own. Of the other two, I think one of them may be from cage number 9, but I'm not entirely certain. Unfortunately, when I came in to inspect the nest box, the hen had removed part of the shell. They normally eat it. I think they eat the shell just because it gives them that calcium back. They won't want to waste anything. There was a bit of shell in there, but I couldn't tell whether it was an egg that had a dot on it or not that had hatched. And unfortunately, the other ones, seems like I can't really see either whether they've got a dot on them or not. So I'm not sure. Hopefully, if it is one out of cage number 9, it will be a dark factor bird, and I'll be able to tell that it was from there, just because there's no dark factor in the pair that's in cage 1. I hope that makes sense. Maybe we can talk about it as they start to feather up. So I will ring them. If I can't tell, I'm going to put them all down as being off of this particular pair. So that's what I will do. Good news in there. Hopefully we'll get another 2 hatch over the next couple of days, and we'll have another 5 youngsters to ring, touch wood. But we'll certainly, certainly helps in terms of that particular pair. And good news, off of the final pair, we're going to have 3 or 4 birds, almost certainly. So that's that particular pair. Like I say, good news in here for that pair. Once those birds have started to feather up, we'll be looking at obviously splitting that pair. So having looked at the chicks from here, it's time to go out and see how the Fifes are doing on Fifes from breeding to bench. So there's both a bit of good news and bad news when it concerns these Fifes. We'll start with the bad news, because it's always nice to finish on a high, isn't it? So the bad news is, you may remember that I said one of the chicks was a bit younger when I moved them, and they've been calling. And I know a couple of people did comment and say that I really ought to put it back. Unfortunately, by the time those comments had come through, the chick had sadly died. It actually survived in the weaning cage, so in the cage on its own, for about 3 days. So I thought it was going to be okay, and then I came in on the 4th day, and sadly I found it dead on the bottom of the cage. So I put that down to me. I put it down to my mistake. I put it down to me as a learning for myself, that if I hear a chick calling like that when I'm about to move it, then to pop it back into the cage, or certainly if it looks a bit younger, as that one did, go with my gut instinct and leave it in the cage for a little bit longer. So that's the bad news out of the way. Like I say, we all learn, don't we? And I certainly am learning the harsh way with that particular moving or weaning the Fifes. With the budgerigars, quite often the chicks, after I put them into, or separate them and put them in the nappy flight, they'll call to their siblings for food, and they'll feed each other. So there we go. Anyway, that's the bad news out of the way. The good news is that the other 3 chicks are doing really, really well. I haven't heard any of them singing yet, although I have heard the cockbird from the original pair, so the adult cockbird, singing his heart out whenever I come down here. When I'm in here, he stops. So, and I don't know whether that is a direct response to something that's going on with the youngsters, whether he can hear the youngsters starting to call. I understand that they will start to, the cockbirds will start to chirp or sing or give a little trill at about 6 weeks old, so we shouldn't have too long to wait, I don't think, to find out whether any of them are cockbirds or hens. And you know, I'm still spending some time just sitting here watching them, although I am trying to give the hen as much quietness as I can by sitting here quite quietly just watching, although when I'm in here she does, you know, keep an eye on me. So that's the chicks. Like I say, they're all, the other three, the remaining three, are all progressing really well. And I'm pleased to say, you know, remember from the last video that the hen was sat on or laid 4 eggs. I'd reset those eggs, and I can confirm that all 4 of those eggs are full, and we're expecting them to hatch within the next 2 or 3 days. So touch wood, you know, we've lost a bird, but touch wood, I'll have 4 in there. This time they should, all 4 should be roughly the same age, because I set them all at the same time. I did spot the blue egg this time, so or the bluer coloured egg this time, which I understand indicates that it's the last egg that the hen's about to lay. So when I saw that she had laid the last of the eggs, I reset the eggs, and it was the last of the eggs. So like I say, expecting those to hatch in the next couple of days. So actually, with the Fives, mostly good news. Little bit of a setback with the loss of that youngest chick, but we won't make that mistake again. So that's it from the Fives. Well, that brings us to the end of another shed talk for this week. Thanks to everybody who has watched this episode. Don't forget, and I think I did forget at the beginning of the episode to say this, so don't forget, if you do enjoy the videos, then do hit that like button, give it a big thumbs up. Of course, share the video as widely as you like. Please do comment on the comment section, and of course, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, then please do subscribe by hitting the subscribe button down below. Like I say, all we've got time for. So until the next one, as always, please do stay safe and enjoy those birds.